Hey, welcome back to the Web Security Academy series. Today we're going to be talking about cross-site scripting. More specifically, reflected cross-site scripting in HTML context with nothing encoded. Now, I'm not going to break down XSS very granularly here. I think a lot of places have done a really good job at that. And I'll go ahead and link to an example. Pwn Function did a great job. Feel free to check them out. I'll link them up top or somewhere on the page or down below so they can give you a really good explanation of XSS and you can jump back here. But I will do my best to at least give you a little bit of an understanding so that way we can take that, move forward, and then break it down further. So XSS at its core is a vulnerability or a web application vulnerability that allows an attacker to inject JavaScript into a user's browser. So what's the impact here? Well, it's not just an alert box. Remember, I can inject JavaScript into a user's browser leveraging the application. So that means that the JavaScript runs within the context of the target application. And with that in mind, that means I can steal things like session tokens potentially or cookies, and then we're talking about classic session hijacking. Also, I can use that JavaScript to access some sensitive functionality or data from the application, like maybe a CSRF token. And then from there, I can craft a malicious request with that CSRF token that a user would then submit automatically to make a state-changing action that might benefit me. There's other stuff you can do with it, like key logging, and really you're just kind of limited to the potential of JavaScript. But it's important to note at the end of the day, the fact that we can inject that JavaScript into a user's browser via that application, leveraging the trusted application, lets us do things within that application that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do against a user. Now, there's different types of cross-site scripting, and we'll break that down in a second, but really take what I said to heart. Remember, XSS, cross-site scripting, is about injection of JavaScript into a user's browser. Now, I emphasize this because when I first started learning about web app pen testing in general, I didn't really have a great understanding of cross-site scripting until I really understood that this is an attack against a user. And so if I find a potential XSS where my payload's reflected unescaped and resulting in JavaScript execution, an important question that I always ask myself is how do I deliver this payload to the user? And if I don't have a good answer to that, it's going to be important to me to determine whether or not, one, is this actually cross-site scripting? And if it is it a true exploitable instance of cross-site scripting? So let's talk about the type of cross-site scripting we're going to be dealing with here, which is reflected cross-site scripting. Well, with reflected cross-site scripting, our payload is sent to the application, and then it's immediately returned by the application unescaped or unsanitized, essentially as is. And because it's returned unescaped, it results in the JavaScript executing. And so reflected, remember, it means that we need to send our payload with that request. So the user needs to send that payload included with the request for the application to return it unescaped, resulting in JavaScript execution. So we're going to use this lab as an example. So when it comes to cross-site scripting, the first thing we want to find is where is the user-controlled input that the application then returns to us somewhere. So let's go ahead and browse this application. As we can see, it's a blog page. We have search functionality. If we search, we'll type in test. We can see that the application returns test. Now, it's important to note, we do see it visible here, but we also want to be able to search within the response in burp. So if I grab this example request, throw it through repeater with Control-R, and I send it again, what I can do is I can search in the response down here. So let's use a different string, like testing 123. It's pretty unique. And what I could do is at the bottom of this response, I can type in my injection payload, or the payload that I use, so testing 123, and I can see exactly where my payload is returned. While we do see one example match here, there could be multiple matches. Maybe our payload is returned and reflected in multiple positions that we're not able to see from the browser's perspective, at least on an initial glance. So that's why burp is really useful in this case. And we can actually click on this gear to auto scroll when text changes. So that way when we start injecting our payloads and sending it, we can actually see live how the application is returning the payload that we're sending and what it's doing to the special characters and to the potentially malicious characters that we're sending. It's a really good way to be able to quickly jump to what we're testing and fuzzing to see how the application responds as far as the behavior is concerned. So as we can see, the application is reflecting this bold tag unescaped. So we can do something like a simple script tag. So script alert, we can use 34 and script. And when we send this, we can see that burp does a really good job of syntax highlighting. And Web Security Academy actually caught that we solved the lab, so that's pretty cool. But you can see that the application is reflecting our input or returning our input unescaped. And you can see that that script tag is being included or returned within that HTML context. And so if I right click this, show response in browser, copy it, and then paste it in our browser here, we'll see that we get that 34 pop-up. So any JavaScript we inject here within the script tags gets executed. Now, there's so many different types of payloads that we can use to test for cross-site scripting, and you're going to want to use a unique one depending on how the application responds or handles our input. If they're blocking script tags, maybe we want to try image source and an event handler. If they're blocking less than and greater than symbols, maybe we want to see what else we can try if the application's using Angular, but I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. In this case, we solved the lab. We were able to, 1, find a place where our input's reflected unescaped, and then 2, we were able to inject the JavaScript and have it reflect that payload, resulting in injected JavaScript execution. And then to answer our question from earlier, how would you deliver this payload to a victim? Well, I would copy this, and I would give a victim this link. And when they click on this link, and we could simulate that by copying it and pasting it into a browser, it would result in JavaScript execution. Well, that's all I got for this video. Really appreciate you stopping by. If you want to see some more, feel free to check out the YouTube channel and subscribe if you want. We're trying to do all the Web Security Academy labs that we can, so really appreciate the support there. I also stream on Twitch Mondays and Thursdays, where we do web app hacking methodology on Monday, and Thursday we do more network pen testing methodology and challenges, and I try to do some giveaways pretty much every Monday and Thursday. Would love to see you there. Any feedback on the videos, I do the editing myself for the most part, especially on these Web Security Academy ones, so definitely appreciate any insight there. And if you want to see a different vulnerability, I'd love to hear about it below. But until next time, thanks again.